Take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So I've been thinking about the media landscape in general lately, and the whole Anna Kasparian, Cenk Uygur, the Young Turks drama has got me thinking a lot about how that works, how the media world works, whether it's YouTube or mainstream media or whatever. And I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to most people that drama works better, right? And that's kind of built into YouTube at this point, that like the thumbnails with the explosive reactions and such destroys so and so and that kind of thing. It does work to bring in viewers, and that's why people do it. People don't do it because they're annoying, even though it is annoying. People do it because it works, and the audience is more attracted to that type of stuff. And you can see that with Cenk and Anna and the Young Turks, by talking about them, by making content that is clearly framed as a criticism of them or a takedown of them. It attracts a lot of viewers to the point where, you know, before, as I was doing this podcast, I was reaching a few people. Most of the big bumps that I got were from talking about right-wing figures and criticizing them. And so most of the engagement would be people getting mad at me, you know, people who were fans of Jordan Peterson or whatever, because that's who I was reaching by talking about Jordan Peterson. But then when I started talking about the Young Turks, when I did the first video about them and then a couple more a little bit later, I noticed something really interesting, which was not only did I get some decent viewership on those videos, but the engagement was so much better. And the audience that I was reaching all of a sudden was this really cool, progressive, thoughtful audience, super diverse, all kinds of different people. And that's not super easy to achieve on YouTube. And so, first of all, I think that that speaks to the audience that the Young Turks have built up over the years. I've said in previous videos about the Young Turks that I think a big reason that content criticizing them is so popular is because they have such a significant audience. They had so many people who followed them, or at least were aware of them, for many years. And so that creates a large audience that is interested in content criticizing them. As people start to get this feeling that they're not so much on the same page as people like Anna Kasparian anymore, all of a sudden, those people are looking for commentators to speak to some of their concerns and to make them feel like there's a left-wing coalition that doesn't include this MAGA apology that we've been seeing from the Young Turks. And so that's how people like the Vanguard, people like Chris on Culture, people like myself have started to build a little bit more of an audience, is by criticizing them. And it's a bit of a dilemma for me because the way YouTube works, it makes it pretty clear that if I kept talking about them every day, if I talked about Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur on this podcast every single day, it would continue to work. If I found random things, little things to nitpick about what they said, or ways to frame things that they said that sound salacious and argumentative and whatever, it would continue to work. And now it might produce some diminishing returns over time where people would become less interested in that type of content, especially if I was phoning it in and just making shit up every day. And part of the reason that the Young Turks are such a good topic to talk about is because they consistently give such good reason to rip into them. Anna Kasparian particularly loves to just go on Twitter and say things that are fun to make fun of her for. But, you know, me personally, I don't really want to talk about them all the time. I'm not that interested in Anna and Cenk Uygur or the Young Turks. I've been aware of them for a long time. They never were particularly my favorite commentators. There was a time where I felt like I was more in their corner than I am now. And I think a lot of people feel that way. But I don't know, I always found them a little obnoxious. And so I don't really care to continue talking about them. But YouTube definitely incentivizes me to do so, because what I prefer talking about is like strategy, left-wing strategy, right-wing strategy. What are people doing on the right that's working? How can we counteract that? How can we emulate that in ways that are helpful to us? You know, I want to talk about the nuts and bolts of policy and what type of policies and strategies we should be looking to. A little bit more in the weeds. That's what I'm interested in. But when I put videos out about that, it gets less clicks, it gets less attention, it reaches less people. It's partially just how YouTube works, but that's also based on how the video does immediately. Like right when the rubber meets the road, how interested are people in this video? And anytime I talk about the Young Turks, or even videos where I mentioned Sam Cedar and the Majority Report, consistently when I put out videos like that, there's like 40, 50 people that show up immediately while the video is still premiering to watch it and watch it all the way through. So that is part of the reason that that content reaches more people, is because right away people are more interested in it, people are more engaged, they watch the whole thing, the engagement is more positive, etc. And so the tactic that I have already noticed and been using is that if you can take a kind of controversial or salacious topic like that, something that people will click on, you can use that as a gateway to get into some of the deeper stuff, the more in the weeds, detail-based strategy and policy and that kind of thing. And so that's the method I've been using, and that seems to work. Like I put out a video a few days ago about Sam Cedar and Ryan Grimm, because it was really just one moment on the Majority Report where Sam Cedar kind of, you can see him coming to a conclusion about Elon Musk on the air. And because that little moment happened, I was able to use that framing for a video called Sam Cedar and Ryan Grimm Realize on Air What Elon Musk is Doing. And that video is not really a criticism of either of those guys. That was literally just so I could talk about the topic of Elon Musk and Doge. And that video reached way more people than any other video where I'm talking about Elon Musk and Doge. So that to me is a little bit more of the method that I want to use going forward, because something about the way that I framed that topic, people were interested in. I think it's partially just that people like Sam Cedar and are interested in him in kind of the opposite way that people are interested in somebody like Anna Kasparian. And that goes the other way too. Not everybody likes Sam Cedar. Everybody has detractors or whatever. But when it comes to the left, Sam Cedar's a little bit more of a popular figure at the moment. So a big part of it is that, like, how much goodwill does this person have? What type of audience do they have? And if you're going to tap into that audience by talking about them, what is their reaction going to be about your content? And so since there are so many people that are frustrated with Anna and Cenk, videos criticizing them get a very positive reaction. And again, that incentivizes you to just endlessly dunk on Cenk and Anna. And I think in the case of channels like the Vanguard, they've made a lot of progress doing that. So while they do other things and they cover all sorts of topics, they know that they're bringing in not just a big audience by talking about those figures, they're bringing in a big progressive audience. And that's huge. That's huge. It's not as easy to tap into a progressive audience as it is to tap into a right-wing audience. And one thing that Louis C.K. said, and obviously Louis C.K. is a disgraced figure at this point, but he has had some interesting things to say over the years, and he was in the media and television world, and so he had some perspective on how that whole thing works, how the sausage is made, no pun intended, that, you know, God, that's gross. You know, he had some interesting perspectives about that kind of thing. And what he said was at Fox News, at one point he was at Fox News because he was filming something there for his show. So he didn't go on Fox or anything, but he used one of their studios for the show because I guess his show was on FX. So that's why it made sense for him to be at Fox. And what he noticed was that the whole thing was designed around immediacy. And so as soon as a news story happened, as soon as there was news in the air, the job of Fox News and the hosts at Fox News was to immediately provide commentary on that topic right away. They're trying to get right in there. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is viewership, and they want to be competitive, and they never want to be falling behind in terms of what the story is. But also, as soon as some piece of raw news is out there, they want to set to work painting the narrative right away. They want it to be clear from the beginning what the narrative is, where they're going with it, and what the ideological end to their coverage of this subject is. And obviously, all media works that way to an extent. There's a breathlessness to it. In other words, all media plays into the same idea that people are more interested in drama. People are more interested in the soap opera and the arguments between people and that sort of thing. Segments on CNN where people are arguing and talking over each other consistently do better. Those are the segments that go viral. Those are the segments that get people talking. When they're just doing segments of coverage of whatever, it doesn't do as well. And I mean, this has been the standard in news for a long time. That's what Jon Stewart went on CNN, that show Crossfire, when he got into it with Tucker Carlson and basically called him a hack on TV. This was years ago, 2000 something. And that it was exactly what he was criticizing about the show. He was like, both of you guys are hacks, you're partisans, and you're just coming here to argue. There's no resolution to any of this. The only point of this show is to cause division and stoke division, and you're hurting America, is what he said. And he was right. That was a good critique. And some people say the show was canceled immediately after that. And some people credit Jon Stewart with that. But I think, though, the problem is not that the problem is not that they're evil and they want to hurt America and divide people. The problem is that these news studios have figured out a long time ago that people care more if there's more drama. People care more if it's a soap opera, if it's a dramatic story. And it gets them more viewership, it keeps their networks afloat, and it makes it so that they're able to get into the more important topics. Exactly what I said before. By framing the story in a way that is salacious and is something that people are interested in, you can actually then give people actual information. And that's where the question becomes, well, what is the bias of this media organization? Fox News is obviously less interested in giving people actual information. And you could argue that's why the other news stations are falling behind, because Fox News favors more heavily the more salacious and dramatic content, the stuff that they know works. So they focus on that, and they focus less on actual information and things that help people understand the world better. And so that's what we're up against. And that's why not only does it sort of work on YouTube to do the same thing, but when people like Cenk and Anna do this weird across the aisle pivot thing, that's what I was saying on the last video about it, is it actually gives them some relevance, because now they're playing to multiple different narratives across the board, and it makes it so that whatever their message is travels further. And unfortunately, in the case of Cenk and Anna, the message tends to be stuff like downplaying Project 2025, talking about how the left is too radical, but to be charitable. And I know some people get frustrated with me being charitable to them, but I mean, they're humans, and I think that they do have intentions that aren't just, we're going to pivot to the right and make all this money. What they're trying to do is create more opportunities to communicate actual left-wing positions to the right, not cartoonish characterizations of left-wing opinions to the right. The problem with that is that they're going on right-wing platforms and networks in order to do it. And so it's not going to work. It's never going to work. And as I've said before, they are simply going to be disposed of as soon as they stop being useful. As soon as the narratives that they're espousing stop being useful to the right, they are not going to be appearing on those shows anymore. So it's kind of a lost cause. But I'm interested in the fact that creating these type of narratives it works to create cultural currency, and it works in terms of proliferating ideas as far as possible and kind of blanketing a certain narrative through many, many different platforms, many different conversations, many different sectors of society. And that's what the right wing has done extremely well. They have turned politics into a series of narratives that they can continue hammering away at, that many, many people can participate in the proliferation of these ideas to the point where you get this blanketing effect, where as of right now in American culture, it feels impossible to escape right-wing talking points and ideology. I mean, if you work a normal job, and you're around people who are like relatively poor, slightly above the poverty line, slightly below it, whatever. If you're in the working world, you almost certainly know and talk to people who repeat these type of right-wing narratives. And that is because they have very successfully proliferated these ideas by making them as interesting to people as possible. And the actual ideas that they communicate are not good. They fall apart upon scrutiny. They are not well-constructed political ideologies or political points or whatever. But the narratives take hold and travel very, very far. And so we see a little hint of this when it comes to Cenk and Anna and how interested people are in content that is criticizing them or saying these are right-wing grifters, etc. And so I guess my question is, how can we utilize that strategy? I don't think it's inherently a bad thing that people are more interested in drama and blah, blah, blah. And while it's great to want to take a step back from that and say we need healing and we need to try to mend bridges and, not be so divisive and not be arguing with each other all the time. I agree with that. But I don't know if it's practical right now. I mean, it's kind of like the philosophy of nonviolence, where it's like nonviolence is great and it's great to be against it and a pacifist and to have a higher moral clarity about it. But it also might lead to you getting your ass absolutely kicked. And when you are up against an incredibly violent movement, you can't afford to be nonviolent in response. You can't afford to be a pacifist in response. You at very least need to be talking about self-defense. And so I think that we should sort of think in those terms when it comes to how are we going to reestablish some of the things that we hold to be self-evident on the left. Things like people have a right to healthcare. People have a right to basic financial dignity. People have a right to not be treated like shit at their job and fired without notice and that sort of thing, like what we're seeing happening in the federal government right now. And by utilizing some of the tactics that do reach people, like playing into the sort of soap opera drama of it all, then we can increase the amount of people that we're reaching with these type of narratives. And hopefully over time that will create a strong network of powerful ideas that don't have to rely so much on the dramatic coverage. But the reality is, I mean, this is America. This is a reality TV nation. We have a reality TV president. And the only way that we can combat the right-wing propaganda that we get from anybody from Anna and Cenk to Ben Shapiro and the people on Fox News, we have to create more powerful narratives that we can build on over time. And all of these pieces of content and everything that everybody does, whether it's a conversation with people you know, or a piece of music that you put out, some piece of art that you put out, an organization that you start or something, all of it can build on existing narratives and become more powerful over time. And if we start to harness that aspect of human behavior, then we might start to see a little bit of a resurgence of dominance of left-wing ideas in culture, because we've let ourselves slip a little bit, and we've got to do anything that we can to gain that ground back. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I post all kinds of stuff there, like members-only content, instrumentals, music. If you like the beats that play in the back of these podcasts, all of that's going to be posted there, as well as anything else you guys might want to see. If you have ideas for stuff that you would like to see as exclusive content, let me know.